I've been shooting weddings with Fujifilm cameras for about 2 years now, and it seems more and more often I get asked, hey, is that a mirrorless camera? So how do you like using mirrorless? Can you actually shoot a wedding with that? Is that one of those mirrorless cameras or what? So it does seem that there's a lot of people out there that truly wonder if you can shoot a wedding or other, important events with mirrorless cameras. Now, I'm not here to tackle that argument of mirrorless versus DSLR and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to tell you how Fujifilm has been working out for me and how I've been able to deal with some of the challenges of using a new and different mirrorless system, because every camera has its downsides, right? There's no perfect camera out there. So it's more so about how do you adapt and how do you overcome those downsides or weaknesses and be able to get the shots you need during a wedding. But instead of rambling on for the next 45 minutes, let's just jump straight into our first topic. Let's talk about the accessories that I take with me on weddings. First and foremost would be the spider holster. You like that? Yeah, I've been using the spider holster since I was shooting with DSLRs back a few years ago, and I really like their system. It's not for everybody, but it is for me. I really like having the weight down on my hips instead of like literally being a pain in the neck all day long. Next, let's talk about flashes. Now for Fujifilm, there's a lot of options and like not a lot of options all at the same time. It seems Godox is the go-to brand for a lot of people these days. They make some awesome stuff. But I've been using the Yongnuo YN560s for a very long time. These are another holdover from my DSLR days. They just work. Some of the reasons why I chose this is because they're cheap. They allow me to, they have the trigger and receiver built into the same unit, and I can control the output of the flash that's on top of my camera, as well as the cameras that I mount on stands. I can control the output and the zoom of all of those from here. That's something that's very important to me. I don't want to mess around and waste time walking over to the stand, pulling it down, adjusting the no. So I got these back when I was shooting Canon, and they've just worked. I've had these for about 6 years, and they still just work. So if they ever die, or if they ever break, or if I just like lose more of them, which I'm prone to doing, I'll probably switch over to Godox, but until then, yeah. YN560, the Mark IVs. Next up is a very important piece of kit. You always want to bring a protein bar with you. I really like these Ollie bars. They're good. A big concern while shooting weddings with a mirrorless camera, unless you have a Sony with a Z battery, is batteries. So I just bought this little, I think it was like $6 on Amazon. It just holds 4 batteries. See, I got them in there. And what I found is that I never use more than 3 batteries per camera in a wedding. So if you think about it, if you start off with 1 in the camera, right? That's 2 because you have 2 cameras. And then you have number 2 and number 3 for your one camera, number 2 and number 3 for your other camera. So a 4-pack of batteries, that's all you need for the whole wedding day. Now, of course, I do bring a couple extra just in case, but I never, ever use those. Better to be prepared, but I never use more than 3 batteries. Most of the time I only use 2. So bring batteries along, get your nice little case to keep them in, and you'll be good to go. Next up is my memory card holder. Another cheap thing from Amazon. There's no cards in here right now because they're all scattered on my desk over there. This holds a bunch. It holds 12. And they say it's crush proof and waterproof. I don't know. Crush proof maybe. At least it's like sit on proof. And my tip for this is at the end of the night, because my cameras have 2 card slots, I will take the number 2 card out of the camera and put them in here, and then put this in my back pocket, and then button my back pocket at the end of the night. Because that way my cameras are in the back of my car in the case, cards are in there, okay? But if anything ever happened, I want some cards like on me. Like if anything happens, I want to know that I have copies of those cards on me at the end of the day. So that way too, when you get home, you can just put your camera case to the side. I don't want to deal with that late at night. And I just pull this out and start copying my cards. So now that we've talked about the accessories, I kind of want to just kind of take you through how I shoot weddings with my Fujifilm cameras. So first off, I use the XH1. I really prefer the XH1. I've had the XT30 for a while, and I'm shooting this with the XT3. I've shot with both of them at weddings before. I just love the XH1 though. There's something about it. I love the way it feels. I love the way it responds. I love the shutter sound during weddings, especially in quiet moments, like getting ready moments, putting on the dress moments, in the ceremony. You don't want to be distracting everybody. So yeah, I go back and forth between using one with a grip or using one without a grip. You can probably see it back there somewhere. Yeah, so it really doesn't matter to me because I don't use boost mode, but sometimes I like how it feels when it's chunky. Sometimes I just feel like not having a grip, but yeah. So when the day starts out, I will usually pair this up with a 16-55. I know that with the 16-55, I can shoot everything. I can shoot the bride finishing up, getting her makeup done. I can shoot the bride if she's still getting her hair done. Maybe mom is starting with her hair. I can shoot the rings. I can shoot the shoes, the dress, the invitations. I can photograph all of those things with the 16-55. That being said, sometimes I will start out the day with my 23mm. This lens is amazing, but you already know that, right? You already know that. Yeah, so if I'm feeling a certain way, or if, you know, I have a little bit more time, it's not very rushed, things are very calm and laid out, then I will use the 23mm in tandem with either my 55 or my 85. But yeah, I really like this lens for the getting ready part of the day as well. You get some great background blur that the 16-55 might not be able to get you, as well as including a lot of the environment. Then as the day progresses, when we get to the ceremony, it's time to bust out the 50-140. So the 50-140 is a staple of a lens as far as I'm concerned. When I was shooting Canon, that 70-200 was like the most important lens. I love that lens. And I was very happy when I finally got my hands on the 50-140 with Fujifilm. That was one of my deciding factors with going with Fujifilm. I had to see how their 70-200 equivalent was, and it's really nice. It's very nice. Focus is fast. It's very sharp. It's very well built. It feels nice. It's not too heavy. What can I say? It's amazing. So I like to bust this out for the ceremonies, or maybe the first look. I like to give my couple a lot of room during first looks, and during a ceremony, of course, you just can't get that close. But just like with my 23mm, sometimes, and more recently, I've been using the Viltrox 85mm f1.8. So I think this lens is still viewed as kind of like subpar by a lot of people, judging by the comments you see about it on like Facebook groups. Because, you know, we could judge our whole lives by YouTube comments and Facebook groups, right? But no, I really like this lens. It's also very well built. It does not have weather sealing, so that will factor into whether I bust it out or not during a portrait session part of the day. But I really like the isolation that the 1.8 aperture gives you. So during first looks, during ceremonies, depending on, again, how the day is moving, if it's not too fast paced or if there's not going to be a lot of variables, then I will use the 85. And I will say I've been using it more and more since I got it. I really haven't used the 50-140 too much since picking up this lens. Now, speaking of the ceremony, when you get to wherever you're gonna be, or maybe you need it for establishing shots, but definitely like the inside of a church, or, you know, if you're in a cool tent while they're getting married, the 10-24 is an amazing lens. I love this lens. When I first switched to Fujifilm, I didn't immediately buy it. I got the Rokinon 12mm instead. Since this isn't a lens that I use throughout the day, it's really like a specialty lens in my opinion. I think it does a great job. I love that I can attach filters. I love that it has the stabilization built in, and it's very small. So in addition to weddings, I can take this, put it on my X-T3 or some camera that doesn't have sensor stabilization, and I can, you know, conveniently travel with it as well. So after the ceremony, when we get to the family photos and all that stuff, I'll usually use a 16-55 for that kind of stuff as well. Moving right along, when we get to the portrait session, something I will occasionally bust out is the 7 Artisans 55mm f1.4. This lens is not optically perfect, but actually that's kind of why I like to use it. It has a kind of, I don't know, it has an interesting look to it. I previously owned the 56 1.2, and while I liked that lens, I found I never really used it, like ever. Yeah, that's an entirely different discussion. You can go ahead and flame me now in the comments if you want. That's fine. I don't really mind, but yeah, this lens doesn't get used often, but it does get some use. And that's saying something because I've owned 3 other 7 Artisans lenses and I sold them very quickly. They weren't really doing it for me. This one, however, is sharp, like sharp enough, you know what I mean? And it looks good. I also like to use this when I get to the reception for detail shots. I like to be able to have a little bit of compression, but still a lot of bokeh to like blur out everything. So this is another like specialty lens. So at like $100, it's kind of hard to beat, and it's so small and lightweight that it's real easy to just toss in my bag. So I bring this to weddings. So that's about it for the gear that I bring to weddings. I just want to talk a little bit further since we've made it up to about the ceremony part of the day. The portrait session, I will, again, I think you figured out kind of my reasoning or my logic behind this, but depending on how it's going, I will bounce back and forth between the 16-55 with maybe the 85, or if I know we're gonna be heading like downtown Chicago, somewhere where I just need versatility, I need to be able to take, you know, amazing wide angle shots and then maybe stand across the street and shoot everybody. So in those situations, I'll probably bring the 50-140 and the 16-55 and just have a 2 lens setup and just be done with it. Then there's some times when we just have tons of time to shoot and maybe the situation calls for using prime lenses, and I'll do a 23 and an 85 or something like that. But yeah, those really are gonna be the 4 lenses that I bounce back and forth between. And the nice thing is with Fujifilm, all of them are small and lightweight, so bringing them in like a messenger bag or a backpack really is no problem. So you can do really whatever you want. It's nice to have options. So then if we move on to the reception part of the day, the reason why I don't really find a problem with Fujifilm's high ISO capabilities, sure, you don't get the best looking, most detailed image at like ISO 8000 or 10,000. But what I found is that even at 6400, you get a very acceptable image, like a good image. In my opinion, it even looks better than when I was shooting with my 5D Mark III or 6D or anything like that, which granted, I mean, by today's standards, that's probably not the best camera either, but the point is it's good enough. And I mean like, it's good enough. It's not like, oh, I guess it's good enough. So for me, the Fujifilm system is totally okay. And I'll tell you why, because when I'm at receptions, if I'm at like ISO 3200 or 2000 or even 6400 or something like that, I light all of my reception shots with flash. So if that just completely like turned you off, then I guess you could just stop watching here, but that's how I do things. I really like the look of it. So what I will do is both my cameras, and again, it's either gonna be the 16-55 and the 50-140, or the 16-55 and the 85. And I'm talking like, this is introductions, this is cake cutting, this is first dance, this is speeches. It covers all of this, one lighting setup. So I like to put my lights, 2 flashes on light stands, and they go like diagonally across the dance floor, across the entire floor. And then I have a flash on top of each of my cameras, and they're set up to do a little bounce fill flash in the front. So I usually shoot everything at 1/32nd power on my flashes. That's like the one on top and the ones on the stand, everything is 1/32nd power. And then I'm usually at like ISO between 2000 and, like I said, maybe 6400 if it's like a huge room. And that's just worked for me. I really like the way the images look. They turn out looking how I like them to look. And because you're using such a high ISO, you get a little bit of the environment. You get a little bit of the uplighting, the DJ lighting, you get some of the mood in there. So it's not so sterile, but at the same time, you get really good lighting. Because I like the ambiance of the wedding. I like to include that, but at the same time, we want some good light to hit our subjects, so everyone can look fabulous the whole time. So once we get a little later into the reception, maybe like when it's just open dancing, everyone's dancing, what I will usually do at that point is keep the same lighting setup, but then I'll put one of my cameras down and just shoot the rest of the night, usually on the 10-24, because I really like that wide angle look. It looks like you're right in there, you're in there with the people as they're dancing. It looks kind of cool. Or I'll just shoot it with the 16-55. And truth be told, I usually just do a little bit of both. Early on, I might do 16-55 so I can get some kind of tight shots of people as they're dancing, and then just finish out the night with that super wide angle look. So that just about wraps it up. That is how I've been shooting weddings with Fujifilm gear for the past 2 years. And before that, I was shooting the same way with Canon gear for about maybe 4, 5, 6 years before that. So that really just shows that switching to Fujifilm really has not had that big an impact on my style. It's really just added to it. Things like the EVF, being able to see the exposure beforehand, being able to review my pictures in the EVF. That's the kind of stuff that has helped out. And having better continuous autofocus, things like that. But really, it's more so just a tool, in my opinion, especially when you're shooting weddings. Like I know we like to be creative and we like to talk specs and all these things, but at the end of the day, when you're shooting weddings, it's more like a tool, and I need it to work. I need it to do its job so I can do my job. And Fujifilm's never really let me down in that regard. It's kind of just stepped right into the place my Canons were doing and just done it while being lighter and while being faster and while being cooler and while giving me other features in like video mode and with autofocus that I just didn't have before. So again, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.